Seduction as a game of intelligence. She doesn't say what she wants. She observes if you understand. Feminine seduction is never direct. It is a game of perception where each gesture is a test and each look is a calculated move. While the man seeks answers, the woman seeks reactions. Because what truly awakens the feminine is not what the man says. It's what he reveals without realizing it. The woman seduces to read. She observes how you react to the gaze, how you behave in the face of absence, how you respond when the silence lengthens. Every detail is a map. She doesn't just want to know if you're attractive, she wants to know if you're stable. Seduction is the field where the feminine tests the masculine, not the body, but the mind. Because the man who is disturbed by the game reveals that he has not yet mastered his own fire. And the man who remains calm, who observes without haste, who understands the gesture and remains still, is the man who intrigues her. The woman is not looking for the strongest. She's looking for the most centered, the one who understands that charm is not an immediate invitation. It's a mirror. And the way the man sees himself in this mirror determines whether he will be remembered or forgotten. She will test your gaze, your patience, your language. And each level of this seduction is a layer of the same game. A silent game where the prize is not the body, it's respect. Before continuing, tell me in the comments, where are you listening to me from now? And how old are you? I want to know where are the men who still understand that true power is not in reacting, but in remaining lucid in the face of beauty. And if you're not already part of this space, subscribe. Here we talk about what few men realize, the invisible tests of the feminine mind, and how to overcome them with serenity. Level 1. Gaze. Feminine seduction always begins with the gaze. Before the word, before the touch, before any approach, she sees. And in that instant, the game has already begun. Her gaze is not random. It is a silent screening, a subtle scan of the environment and intentions. She measures the impact she causes, observes who looked away, who sustained it, who got lost, because the gaze is the first weapon. And the man who doesn't know how to deal with it already loses his balance before the game begins. The woman uses her gaze to provoke a reaction. She wants to know if you are driven by impulse or by consciousness, if you get distracted, if you disguise, if you give in. She notices the movement of your eyes, the tension in your body, the hesitation in your voice. Everything you think you're hiding, she perceives in seconds. But there is a detail that few understand. She doesn't just seek to be looked at, she seeks respect within the gaze. The gaze that invades scares her. The gaze that retreats bores her. But the firm, calm, conscious gaze that recognizes without trying to dominate, that is the gaze that holds her. The masculine gaze is the first mirror of the man's mind, and that's why the feminine uses it as a test. She wants to see if you are able to sustain your own desire without getting lost in it. Because the man who looks with mastery transmits something that most don't have: serene presence. The gaze is the invisible invitation, but it is also the warning. She launches it and observes. Are you going to react, or are you going to remain whole? The man who understands the game neither looks away nor attacks. He observes back, with the calm of someone who knows that the power is not in winning the gaze, but in not needing to win it. And it is at this moment that the first bond is created. The feminine does not fall in love with what it sees, but with what it feels while being seen. And the man who knows how to look with firmness and respect creates in her unconscious the feeling of being in front of someone rare, someone who doesn't get lost in their own desire. Seduction begins here, in a crossing of glances that needs no words. And the wise man understands that when she looks, she's not trying to conquer you. She's just measuring your mind. Level 2. Humor. After the gaze comes the smile. And the smile is the first sign of permission, but also the first emotional test. Humor is the field where the feminine observes what the masculine does with lightness. She laughs, comments, provokes, but what she really wants to know is, do you become unbalanced when I break the silence? Feminine laughter is not just a response, it's a reading tool. When a woman starts to joke, she is measuring your rhythm. She wants to know if your energy accompanies hers, or if you try to dominate the moment. The hurried man responds too much, makes forced jokes, seeks attention, and the woman feels it, because anxious masculine humor gives away insecurity. But the centered man understands the game. He doesn't force laughter. He lets it be born naturally, with the calm of someone who has nothing to prove. And that's what intrigues her. The man who laughs with serenity, who doesn't get lost in the need to impress. Humor is the first touch without hands. It creates proximity without contact, intimacy without exposure. When laughter flows, the body relaxes. And when the body relaxes, the feminine feels safe. That's why a woman approaches a man who makes her laugh faster. Not because he's funny, but because he makes her lower her guard. Laughter is a subtle mirror. She observes if you laugh with her or at her, because there is a difference. Laughing with her is connection. Laughing at her is an attempt. And the feminine feels this difference in the air, even without words. Have you noticed that her smile is not always about what was said, but about who said it? That's it. The woman doesn't laugh at the content. She laughs at the energy. She reacts to the tranquility of the one who makes her feel light. Humor is the second level of seduction because it disarms defenses effortlessly. The man who masters this point doesn't need to prove intelligence. He just demonstrates emotional balance. And the feminine recognizes this as strength. The woman is not looking for the funniest. She's looking for the one who makes her forget the world for a moment. And that is the power of humor, to transform the weight of attraction into lightness without losing the mystery. Level 3. Distance. When she realizes that the game is formed, she retreats, not out of disinterest, but to observe your reaction to the absence. Distance is the most sophisticated test of the feminine mind. She wants to know if the man who seemed secure in his gaze and calm in his laughter also knows how to remain stable in silence. Because the woman understands something that few men realize. The true strength of a man is shown when she moves away. She creates the space on purpose, takes a while to respond, changes her tone, disappears for a day. And all of this has a reason, to see if your emotional control is real or just acting. The man who doesn't understand the game panics, thinks too much, reacts too much, explains too much. But the lucid man understands. Distance is the field where respect is born. The woman distances herself because she needs to test whether your presence is energy or just insistence. She wants to know if you are a man of axis or just a body guided by anxiety. If you lose your calm, she loses her charm, because the feminine feels repulsed by despair. But if you remain calm, occupying your own space with tranquility, she comes back, not for the game, but by instinct. The distancing is the oldest dance between polarities. She retreats to see if you invade or maintain the field. And the wise man never invades. He understands that space is necessary for desire to grow. Because desire, like fire, needs air. And distance is the air between two bodies that have not yet touched. It is here that the woman understands the type of man she is dealing with. The weak one chases. The immature one demands. But the firm man waits. He observes with serenity, knowing that absence is also communication. Because whoever masters their own silence has already won half the game. She will come back, but not out of guilt, nor out of curiosity. She will come back because her body misses the energy that you maintained while she was absent. And that is the greatest power of the centered man. He doesn't need to do anything. His own absence becomes a constant presence. If you've made it this far, comment. Which of these levels do you think is the most dangerous? Because distance, when misunderstood, is the test that separates the impatient man from the imperturbable man. The touch. When silence has said enough, she touches. But the feminine touch is not simple. It's code. A gesture so brief and calculated that the distracted man thinks it was by chance, while the attentive man feels the weight of the intention behind the instant. Touch is the level at which the woman transforms energy into language. She doesn't need to say what she feels. Her body speaks for her. A touch on the shoulder, a hand that brushes the arm, a subtle contact when approaching. Everything has meaning, and the meaning is one. She wants to see what your body does with hers. It's not about the touch itself, but about what it reveals. She wants to understand if you become disorganized, if your gaze changes, if your breathing gives away what your mind is trying to hide, because touch is the detector of your energy. And the man who loses his axis here loses the respect he had been building since the gaze. The feminine touches out of curiosity, but observes with surgical precision. She wants to know if the man in front of her is a hostage of impulse or the owner of his own instinct. And the common man's mistake is to confuse touch with permission. But touch is not an invitation. It's observation. She's not giving you access. She's analyzing you. The light touch is the perfect trap because it activates the instinct without destroying the mystery, leaves the man between wanting and containing, and the woman perceives how much he masters the fire within him. The disciplined man responds with presence, doesn't move away, doesn't advance, remains, and that's what disarms her. Because true desire is born from control, not from haste. Have you noticed that her touch is sometimes more psychological than physical? That the body reacts, but her mind seems distant, observing everything. That's it. She's testing you. She wants to know if your body obeys your spirit, or if your spirit bends before your body. Touch is the moment when desire ceases to be a game and becomes a mirror. She sees in you the reflection of her own power. And the man who sustains the gaze, maintains the rhythm, and doesn't get lost, becomes the type of presence that her body recognizes as strength and shelter at the same time. Touch is the oldest ritual of humanity, but only the conscious man understands that it doesn't serve to conquer. It serves to reveal who is really in control. Silence and the invisible invitation. The seductive woman understands the value of silence. When the gaze has already been launched, the laughter shared, the touch tested, she falls silent, and her silence is the greatest movement of all. Silence is the field where the man reveals what he is. It is in it that the impulse screams, that fear appears, that control or the lack of it becomes visible. She doesn't say anything because she doesn't need to say anything. What she wants to know now is simple. Do you know how to be with me without needing noise? The feminine is made of rhythm, and silence is the moment when she changes the beat. After provoking, she stops and observes what the man does with the pause. The immature one hurries, tries to fill the space, talks too much, explains too much, spoils the air she created. But the conscious man understands the power of shared stillness. Feminine silence is an invitation disguised as distancing. She observes you without words, waiting to see if your energy remains firm or if it dissolves. Because the woman's desire is not for what you say, but for what you endure. She wants to see if your gaze remains calm, if your breathing remains slow, if your body remains present, even without stimulus. The weak man tries to break the silence. The wise man becomes part of it. He understands that the space between words is the territory of trust. It is there that she decides whether your fire is maturity or neediness. If you endure the emptiness, she feels that she can surrender without fear. In silence, the feminine reveals what the body has not yet shown, and the man who has learned to hear what is not said discovers the secret that most will never see. Seduction is not in the gesture, it is in the rhythm of absence. She falls silent, and the man who understands the game also falls silent. But his silence has a purpose. It's not insecurity, it's mastery. It is the type of presence that says, I can have you, but I don't need to. And that invisible phrase is the one that echoes loudest in the feminine unconscious. Silence is the last test before surrender, and the woman who applies it knows that most fail. Because few men can endure the emptiness without trying to fill it with words, promises, or desire. But the man who endures the emptiness becomes his own magnetic field, and her body, inevitably, leans in the direction of the peace he transmits. Silence is the invisible invitation, and only the man who has understood the calm can hear what this invitation really says. Dominance and subtle control. When a woman reaches this point, she has already understood everything she needed to. She no longer needs the gaze, the touch, nor the laughter. Now, she has what she always sought: predictability about your mind. Feminine dominance is silent. She doesn't command, she influences. She doesn't demand, she suggests. And what makes this power so absolute is that you don't even realize you're obeying. The woman at this level already knows the effect she causes. She observes you speak, act, react, notices the gestures, the pauses, the micro-movements. She already understands what each of your words means, and therefore she doesn't need to do anything else. It is enough to exist. Her presence becomes a gravitational force. You think you're in control, but her field envelops you slowly, with the patience of someone who has learned to master time. She doesn't run, she waits. She doesn't force, she induces. And the man who doesn't know himself ends up moving exactly in the direction she wanted from the beginning. But feminine dominance is not manipulation. It's refined, emotional reading. She only responds to what the man delivers. If he shows himself firm, she retreats with respect. If he shows himself unstable, she takes control. It's instinctive. The nature of the feminine seeks security, and if the masculine doesn't offer it, she creates it, taking command of the emotional relationship. The immature man calls this a game. The lucid man understands its natural dynamics. And, at this level, the woman only returns the reflection of your energy. She dominates you, not because she is stronger, but because she realized how much you surrender to what you feel. Feminine dominance is the mirror of your weakness. But when she finds a man who doesn't react, who doesn't try to control or run away, who understands the movement and accepts it with serenity, she loses power, and paradoxically feels free. Because the only man that the feminine truly respects is the one who doesn't need to defend himself from it. The one who understands the game, but doesn't play. The one who recognizes the charm, but doesn't get lost in the charm. The one who feels the fire, but doesn't burn. Her dominance is subtle, elegant, silent, but it only exists when the man allows it. And the man who knows his own mind is the only one who can look at her, smile, and think, I understand you, but I don't surrender. This is the end of seduction, the point at which her power finds the limit of your consciousness. And when this happens, the game ends. Not because someone won, but because both recognized each other. The man who doesn't fall learns. The woman doesn't win by force. She wins by reading. While the man tries to decipher, she just observes. And it is in this difference that the game is decided. Feminine seduction is not about conquest. It's about emotional understanding. Each gesture, each pause, each silence is a way of testing the man's mind. Not to manipulate him, but to discover if he is capable of containing himself in the face of his own desire. The common man falls for the charm, confuses test with approval, and reacts to everything he feels. But the lucid man learns from the movement. He realizes that the gaze is not provocation, it's observation. That laughter is not an invitation, it's screening. That distancing is not rejection, it's measuring the axis. That touch is not surrender, it's reading. That silence is not emptiness, it's a test of presence. And that the woman's final dominance is not about him, it's about who he shows himself to be in front of her. The woman doesn't want to beat the man. She wants to feel that he really exists. And the man who really exists doesn't need to run, nor prove, nor compete. He knows that strength is in calm, that mystery is in silence, and that true seduction is remaining in possession of oneself when the whole world tries to pull you out of your center. The man who understands this is never manipulated again, because he realizes that her power depends on your instability, and when you become stable, everything changes. The game ends, respect begins. She looks at him and understands that she has no dominance, but feels something even stronger, admiration. Because the man who doesn't fall is not cold, he is conscious. He sees the game, understands the rules, but chooses not to play. And that is the victory that the feminine recognizes, even in silence. In the end, understanding feminine seduction is understanding oneself, because the man who masters his own mind never fears the power of a woman. He respects it. If this message made sense to you, subscribe and continue following the series. Here, we talk about what few men have the courage to face, the invisible dynamics of the feminine mind, and the power to remain lucid in the midst of temptation. And remember, the woman doesn't win by force, she wins by reading. But the man who knows himself doesn't need to win, just remain.